I am going to ignore the fact that it is still full-blown summer outside and actually pretty hot today. Well, hello friends. Welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. We have had a busy week here with back to school and birthdays and trying to get back into the swing of things with fall right around the corner. I know this time of year can be tricky for a lot of people as the days get shorter and this time of year gets a lot busier. And the last thing you want to think about is what's for dinner. So join me in my kitchen today as I share with you some new dinner ideas, things that I have made for my family of 6 in my kitchen this past week. Today's video will have a variety of different things. We're going to have some healthier stuff, some stacking meals, some super simple meals that come together really quick, but they are all budget friendly and perfect for even low grocery budgets. I hope this video gives you the motivation that you need for some meal ideas in your own kitchen. The first meal we're going to be getting into today is called jalapeno popper chicken. This is a brand new meal to me. I saw this when I was scrolling on TikTok and I'm like, that sounds really good. This also is worth noting that it is not spicy if you do not want it to be. So the way I made it was not spicy at all. You, of course, can make it spicier, but it was really nice to be able to have those flavors of a really good like jalapeno popper, but not have it be spicy. So if that is something that you really enjoy, but you don't like the spice, you can definitely leave it out. I'm starting off by cooking a couple pieces of bacon in this large skillet. Once I have it cooked through, I'm going to set it aside, and in the same skillet with all the grease and everything from that bacon, I'm going to put the chicken in. Now I just took 2 chicken breasts that were pretty large and I cut them in half to make them thinner. So we have 4 pieces of chicken that's going to go into this pot. We even had some leftovers from this for another meal. So this is one way I like to save on our grocery budget is I will get 1 or 2 of those large packets of chicken breasts from Walmart. I'm not really sure how many pounds are in each, but I take those and I put them in bags of 2 generally, sometimes 3, and I will cut them in half and it really stretches in my family. To season the chicken, I used cowboy butter. That is a favorite in our house, but if you don't have that or if you prefer a different seasoning, you can use whatever you have on hand. Now you're going to want to cook the chicken pretty much all the way through. So I cooked it all the way through. I'm putting it off to the side with the bacon. I think you could cook it a little bit below the temperature. However, for the most part, you want to cook it through. I will be putting this back into the sauce, so it will cook a little bit more, but really not much. Now in this same pot with the grease from the bacon and the chicken, I added in a couple of diced up jalapenos from my garden. Again, if you're wanting it to be spicier, you can definitely add in the seeds or some, depending on your spiciness. I chose not to add any just because I wanted everybody to be able to enjoy all of the flavors and not be too spicy. So I cooked down the jalapenos and I added in, I want to say it was about 1/4 cup of flour. I added in a couple tablespoons of butter. Again, if you are new here, I usually have all of the recipes from today's video down below in the description box if you want to try any of these out. So you'll get more precise instructions down below because I am not the greatest at having it in front of me whenever I'm doing my voiceovers. Once I cooked the flour for a couple of minutes, I started slowly adding in some chicken broth. Now you can use whatever broth you have on hand. So I'm just slowly adding that in and getting it to a consistency I'm wanting. I then add in about a tablespoon of onion powder. I did do garlic. I don't have minced garlic like the recipe says. That's something that I don't usually have. So I just added in garlic, onion powder, Italian seasoning, mixing those up. And then for whatever reason, I could have sworn that this recipe had like milk or cream that you were supposed to add in. So I'm going to get it to a consistency I'm wanting. And then I actually have some leftover evaporated milk from another recipe that you'll see in just a minute. So I had some leftover from that. I went ahead and just put the rest of that in so it didn't go to waste. And for this part, it might look a little different just depending on how thick or thin you're wanting your gravy to be. So get to whatever consistency you're wanting by slowly adding in whatever broth you're using. And then we're going to be adding in half a block of cream cheese. And if you want to add cream, you can. I feel like it added a nice touch to it. And I just had some sitting around, so I didn't want it to go to waste. I put half a block of cream cheese into this mixture and then put the lid on the pot. I have the temperature pretty low, just on a really low simmer, and I'm going to let it melt down just a little bit before I mix it up. So here it has been a couple of minutes. I'm going to mix it up and get it all incorporated before I add back in the chicken and the bacon. At this point, if you did not cook your chicken all the way through, you can put that back into the pot and simmer it until it's cooked all the way through. I usually do that as well. I think I just didn't do that this time around because it's a newer recipe to me. This recipe will definitely be one that I come back to over and over again. I don't even feel like you have to be a huge jalapeno popper fan because although it does have notes of jalapeno poppers, it's not overwhelming. So this recipe was probably one of my favorites this week. I served it over some rice that we already had on hand. I make a huge pot of rice usually whenever I make it. And so I like having those leftovers. If I don't end up using it by the end of the week for lunches or whatever it may be, I like slowly incorporating that kind of stuff into other meals that I'm making just to get rid of it and to limit our food waste. So I served this over some rice. However, the recipe that I followed, they served it over mashed potatoes and then with like a side of, I want to say it was broccoli. So you could definitely switch this up however you're wanting. And by using whatever you have on hand, you'll end up saving in your grocery budget. One thing that I really like doing, so like I said, I will use rice or whatever. If I have, I kind of look at my leftovers, especially come the end of the week, see what I have to use in other meals. So I like doing that, but also stretching my meat, using it for multiple different recipes. And like I did that with the chicken and the bacon. I mentioned this week we were having a birthday in the house, so this week we were celebrating Lincoln. He turned 9 years old, and I cannot even believe it. Cannot believe it has been 9 years. However, he asked for a chocolate tres leches cake for his birthday. This was something that I think I made for like the very first time for my husband's birthday, and it was really good, and he enjoyed it enough to ask for it for his birthday. I do often like to just keep these videos on Fridays about like dinner and lunches, things that give you ideas for your house. However, one thing that I really like doing is, especially to like save on a grocery budget, is to make a lot of our snacks and like desserts from scratch. I feel like it really helps because a lot of times whenever I'm shopping, especially with my younger kids, they will add all kinds of snacks and treats to the cart. And I feel like that really adds up quickly. So to limit that and to kind of make things stretch in terms of snacks and stuff, I will either make a big portion from scratch, or I will get like one of those box cake mixes or brownies or, something like that. I often make cookies just because it is so simple and it's easy to make a huge batch of cookies and have desserts for the rest of the week. So that is another reason why I was wanting to share this, because if you're looking for ways to have snacks or treats last you throughout the week, but buying those from the store is something that, increases your grocery budget like it does mine, this helps, doing things like this. So it doesn't have to be from scratch. It could definitely be just, I want to say those cake mixes, like they get really cheap. I want to say that maybe they're $2, but, and that's even cheaper than one box of like treats from the store. So it definitely helps out if you're trying to save on your grocery budget. So I put together all the ingredients for the cake. I baked that. And so now I'm going to put together the filling, I guess is what it would be called. So I have sweetened condensed milk. This is where I use the evaporated milk and then some cocoa powder. I'm going to mix those together, and then I'm going to poke holes into the cake. And while it's still warm, I'm going to kind of spoon over this filling. I am one of those moms that really enjoy my kids' birthdays. I just love birthdays, and I love celebrating in general. It doesn't even have to be a birthday. I love holidays and celebrating and stuff. And I always try to make my kids' birthday very, very special. And I feel like that's never going to change. Even when they're full adults and living on their own, I think I will still try to really make their birthdays special, because I just absolutely love it. I love posting the pictures on social media just over the years and reminiscing about all my years with them. And something about it I just absolutely love. It's just very special to me, and I really, really enjoy it. And I like I think my daughter might be the only one that actually has like ice cream or something like that I don't make for her. And that's because she doesn't actually like frosting, and so she doesn't usually like cake. So oftentimes she will just get ice cream. And actually, you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, we made homemade ice cream for her birthday this year. So I actually did make hers too, I guess. But I just absolutely love celebrating birthdays, and I don't really mind mine as much. I think it's more of the reminiscing thing for my kids that I absolutely love. While everything was mixing together, I was watching Lincoln run around the living room, and Ted is like his buddy. He is a herding dog, and so he tends to try to herd the kids when they're running around. So that is what they were doing. I have the frosting all put together for the cake. It has been a little bit. I like to add the filling into the cake and then let it sit in the fridge for a couple of hours to kind of soak in. And then once it cooled down, I made the whipped cream frosting to go over top. I'm just spreading that on and getting it all set. Kind of on a last minute whim, I thought it would be fun to do over the top chocolate and add in chocolate chips in the shape of a 9. So that is what I'm doing here. Like I said, I like just taking the time on their birthdays or right before their birthdays and really celebrating them, making every little detail special and really reminiscing with them and myself. It's such a special time to me. And, he was my first preemie baby. He was someone that the doctors always warned us that he would be, behind a lot of his milestones and everything. And to see over the years that he has just completely overcome all of those things, all those obstacles, and he is incredibly smart. He's going to be doing such amazing things. So I wanted to take the time out to celebrate him. We are now moving on to our next dinner. Now, I feel like I even went a little bit back and forth if I should even post this, because I know everything going around with the salad, the bagged salad. I think it's just bagged salad. I don't even know. I feel like I have no idea at this point what we're supposed to be eating, what we're supposed to be looking for, what we're supposed to be washing, and and cooking and, you know, all these things. So, you know, if that is something that you are following and you know more information and, you know, you're not eating the bagged lettuce, then you could definitely skip this recipe. I feel like I'm just so confused at this point that I don't really know what is what and what we're not supposed to be doing. So I did go ahead and get a bagged salad. This one is our favorite. It is, I think it's just a Caesar salad, but it has this pepper that I was putting on now. Absolutely love the salad, and my kids really like it too. So I got a large bag of it. I put in all the ingredients it came with in this big bowl, and I am dicing up just a chicken breast that I cut in half and grilled earlier this week. So I'm wanting to use that up, and this was probably like the rest of my family's absolute favorite this week, which is so funny to me because it was like the easiest thing to put together. So if you are not eating bag salad, or I bet you could even switch this up and do like, you know, cooked cabbage or something instead. But you know, if you're not eating the salad now because of the parasite and you're wanting to hold off, you definitely could do that. Just put this in your back pocket for later, because for whatever reason, this was like my kids' favorite meal of the week, and it was just so insanely simple. So like I said, I am reusing some grilled chicken that we had left over. I put together the bagged salad. I felt like it needed a little bit more dressing, and that's only because I'm a saucier person. So I went ahead, I had some homemade Caesar dressing that I had made previously in the fridge. So I'm going to add that to this, and then we are going to be putting this into a large tortilla, wrapping them up and calling it dinner. And like I said, this recipe can be done a million different ways. If you're not doing the lettuce, if you have leftover rice, for instance, like we had in our last meal, you can warm that up, add it with the chicken, add some cheese or salsa or sour cream or whatever you like on yours, and add it to the tortilla. And there you have a meal that took no time at all to put together on those really busy weeknights, and you used up your leftovers, so no food waste. I really love posting these videos and making these videos because, one, this is really how I kind of function in my kitchen, trying to use up everything we have and getting our grocery bill down as much as I possibly can. It's almost like a game to me at this point. But I also really love posting these videos because I love hearing all the ideas that you guys bring in the comments below. So if you have any of these where you would be switching these up, please put them down below. I love reading them and seeing how you guys would make your meals, how you would switch it up. It always gives me ideas on how I can do these things next time. I think a lot of the time, us homemakers, we get in these ruts with cooking, and it's very easy. I fall victim to it constantly. Having to cook for your family on a regular basis is like one of the hardest adult things, I think, because you just constantly fall into this rut. And I see posts all the time that are like, you know, I'm so sick of making this. What are some other options? What are some other ideas? And it is very easy to go through social media and scroll through things. However, I feel like we are just overcomplicating things. You can go through your fridge, go through your pantry, especially if you're trying to save on your grocery bill, and just use what you have on hand. There is, you know, if you find a new recipe, you do not have to stick to that recipe. I just want to remind everyone that you can switch things up. You can use what you have on hand. And a lot of times those recipes end up being really, really good ones. And speaking of falling victim to another thing online, another recipe online, I was scrolling and I keep coming across this dirty cabbage recipe. So this is a low-cal recipe, low carb, keto, I don't know, it had all the things, and I'm sure that you can make it a million different ways too. This is just the recipe that I was following, and I was actually surprised at how delicious this was. When I first started making this recipe, I originally thought it would primarily just be for me. I have been on a diet for, I think it's like 4 months now. And I like to try different recipes that I can eat that I feel a little bit better about. So I was going to make a large pot of this and put it aside for me to just be able to pull out for a quick lunch or dinner throughout the week. And also for my husband to do the same. However, this actually ended up being a really big hit. Even my picky kids really liked this meal. I'm curious if you have like pickier eaters in your family or people that would immediately see this, like the name of this dirty cabbage, and just be like, nope, not trying that. I found that whenever I was making this recipe, it's always surprising to me because since we moved down here, I feel like everybody is pickier, but not that they're trying the food. I just feel like they're not giving it a chance. And that's something that has been interesting since our family has moved down here. Because when we were up in Chicago, it seems like people ate a lot healthier, or they tried things that were significantly healthier for them. And it was kind of fun. Like we had a large group of friends and we would try all different kinds of things, and we would, diet together and have all these like healthier things. And it was never, we never really had, I mean, sure, we probably had, some kids that were like, oh no, I'm not eating that vegetable or whatever. But for the most part, I didn't really see a lot of that until I moved down here. And that has been really interesting to me. And whenever I make something like this, I will, send it to friends or whatever. And I did end up sending like a Snapchat of me making this to a group of friends from down here. And the amount of people that were like, nope, would never try that is always surprising to me, because it's like, you're really missing out. This is such a great recipe. And it's always surprising how like they don't even want to try it. So I'm curious, do you experience that like where you're located? My daughter and Theo, they are probably our pickiest eaters in the house, but they even tried this and they really enjoyed this. So I was a little surprised with them, only because they are a little pickier, but they actually really liked this. So I didn't have as much to set aside as I was originally thinking, but I had enough to actually put aside for multiple lunches. I had this for dinner one day, and then my husband brought it, I think, 2 days to the shop for lunch. So it ended up going over very well, and this is something that it lasted in the fridge for most of the week. So I was really happy about that. I was a little unsure, just because I've never made this before, how exactly the taste would be, but I want to say it was so similar to like some type of pasta. I ended up eating mine like with a little bit of hot sauce on top, and it was incredible. I was pretty happy with how this turned out. And my husband, even last night, whenever we were, I don't know why we were talking about this recipe, but when we were talking about this recipe, he was like, you could definitely put that in the fridge like each week, and that would be something that is a great go-to meal for like him to bring to work. He really enjoyed it, and he has been dieting with me, just kind of a little bit differently. Like a lot of the times he's eating the dinners that I'm making for the family and I'm not, but for the most part, he is also like dieting and stuff like that. So he really enjoyed this, and he was like, this will be a great addition to have in the fridge on a regular basis. If you are new here and you're curious why I am just talking this entire time and not giving you the step-by-step for all of these recipes, I will have them listed down below in the description box. I don't know. I'm not like those other YouTube channels where I can just sit here and discuss the recipes in detail. I don't find that very fun. So I apologize if that is what you're here for, but it's just not something that I have an easy time with. And so a lot of times I like to just kind of chit chat with friends and share what we made throughout the week and give everybody ideas. But if you are looking for the recipes, you can always find them down below. Here is how the dirty cabbage ended up turning out. I put this in a large bowl in the fridge and kept that for lots of leftovers. I have seen people eat this like over rice. I found like it really wasn't very necessary. I really enjoyed this just with a little bit of hot sauce over top of it. So that is how I ate it. And like I said, it was a pretty big hit this week. The next thing that I'm going to be making is baked potato soup and honey mustard baked ham sandwiches. I feel like for most of us, we are still full-blown in summer at this point, and it does seem a little silly to be making soup when it is like 90 degrees outside. However, we are getting into soup season. I figured I would share because we are, like I said, getting into soup season, and this is a recipe that you could throw in the crock pot before you head off to work or before your kids get home from school, and you can have a nice easy dinner already made up. This also has a ton of leftovers, which I love having, especially during those school days where you don't want to have to do lunch. We homeschool, and so a lot of times we do leftovers for lunch. So in this pot, I have some onions that I diced up going. I'm just kind of cooking them down, and I have them cooking in the grease from a couple of pieces of bacon. I use that same package of bacon that we used earlier in the week. I like separating that into multiple meals if I can, and I actually used it in 3 different meals this week, so that was pretty cool. But I have that cooked down. I took it out, set it off to the side. I have the onions going in the bacon grease, and now I'm putting in some flour to thicken it up. I feel like soup for the most part is like all the same thing. You're just, you're putting in a base and you're adding things into it. So I chose this one this week because this is one of my daughter's favorites, and we tend to make my boys' favorites just because they care a little more. So like when I'm asking for dinner suggestions or whatever it may be, a lot of times their soup is the broccoli cheddar soup, and so they will often, like, if I ask, they're like, oh, make that. So I usually will just go ahead and do that, and my daughter doesn't really care. And I had a lot of these ingredients already on hand. I do something that's called like meal stacking, or at least that's what I call it, where you kind of use a bunch of the same ingredients and you just make like similar meals, but they're a little different. So I had the ingredients on here. I'm going ahead and just making this soup, and it was a big hit for everybody, but this is also one of my daughter's favorites. So in here I added in some broth, and I got that going to a consistency I was wanting. I did do it a little bit more brothier because I plan on smashing the potatoes. So I cut up a bunch of potatoes. I did set some aside, so that's what I just added in now. But before I added those in, I had the bigger portion of them. I had a larger portion of them going in the broth, and then I smashed those once they were able to. And then I put the other ones in and kind of had those cook a little longer. So we had some chunk potatoes, but then some that were in the soup. Now I'm just adding in ingredients like cheese. I added the bacon back in. I a lot of times will do sour cream, but I think I had some Greek yogurt that I added in. If I can make that substitution wherever I can, I usually do. So I added that in, and then I usually will get the soup to where I'm wanting it before I add in cream of whatever I have on hand. So I had half and half this week, and that is what I'm using. I really wanted to make some type of sandwich, and so I ended up having, I don't show it, I'll just show it here when it's done, but what I did was I just took some potato bread and I put some honey mustard that I had already on hand that I made earlier this week. I spread that onto the loaf and then put some ham and cheese and then put those in the oven to bake until they were nice and melty, and that is what I served with dinner. Our next meal, we're going to be making chili mac, which is so iconic for fall time, but I'm actually making it for a pretty good reason. I am going to ignore the fact that it is still full-blown summer outside and actually pretty hot today. I am trying to save on our grocery budget, and I've really been focusing this last month on a certain dollar amount. I'm trying to get it as low as I possibly can, but this is something that I've been working on. And one way to really get your grocery budget down is to stack your meals. At least that's what I call it. It is basically making a large pot of something or a large portion of something and using it throughout the week or throughout a period of time in different ways to kind of make one thing but different ways, so you're not necessarily getting sick of it and it seems like a new meal each time. So I'm gonna get started on some crock-pot turkey chili today. We're gonna get a huge portion going in the crock-pot. We'll have this for dinner tonight. I'm going to take the leftovers then after tonight, and we're going to turn them into new meals throughout this coming week. So as I said, I plan on making this large pot of chili, and I'm wanting to do that because I feel like that really makes a grocery budget stretch if you do a huge pot of chili, because you can make it a bunch of different ways with the leftovers. So that is something that I really like doing, especially in the fall. I make chili a lot, and you will see that on my channel because I like making it a bunch of different ways, so then we have multiple meals with just that one pot. So I'm making that, and of course I could just serve this as just a bowl of chili. However, my family really likes with like chili mac. I don't know, because I feel like this also depends. I've asked this whenever I've made this before, I'm pretty sure, but I feel like it depends on like which state you're located in or where you grew up. So chili mac, I think, can mean like mac and cheese, and you're adding it into chili. Whenever I make it, I just make the elbow noodles, and I have just the elbow noodles, and then I put a scoop of chili over top. So that is how I do it. However, I know that chili is different for so many different people around the United States. So I am curious if you make it differently. I'm curious how that is. I know that there's a big debate between beans or no beans. So are you a bean in your chili person or a no bean? Do you have noodles in your chili? What is the differences, and where do you live, or where did you grow up? Because I guess, you know, if you live somewhere different now, though, it might be a little different. I'm sure you still make it how you made it as a kid or how you had it as a kid. So I'm very curious. I always love hearing the different locations that people are in and how meals change based on those locations. I have in this crock pot, I'm adding in some green chilies. These are not the spicy ones. These are just the mild ones. However, if you've been here for a while, you know that I constantly accidentally buy the spicy ones. So I have the regular ones this time. It will not be super spicy chili. I'm adding in 3 cans of these mixed chili beans. And then I have in the pot already that turkey meat. So I did 1 pound of ground turkey. You can, of course, switch that up to whatever you have on hand. I sauteed those with some onions that I diced up. I put in this pot, and now I'm just adding everything to it. I think another debate with the chili is the base. So do you have a more tomato base, or is it beef broth? I'm not really sure the other one. So when I was growing up, I was used to the more tomato based ones. And as I've become an adult and made it different ways, I think for the last few years, I've made chili the exact same way. However, before I found this recipe and how I really liked it, I made it more of a tomato base, and I quickly realized that that was just not really my favorite. It also, if you have heartburn, like my husband does, he always had really bad heartburn from it. So I made the switch, and I don't add nearly as much tomatoes. I actually just chopped some up from the garden and added those in. I'll usually do like some type of either diced tomatoes or maybe a small thing of tomato sauce, but I keep it very minimal, and I instead will add in a lot of beef broth. So I added in a couple cups of beef broth instead of having it more of a tomato base, and that is really how my family enjoys it. So like I said, I served it over some noodles, put some cheese on top, and it was a delicious and easy dinner. But anyway, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.